Hi, it's Andy Parkin with more business chat. Today we have Sophie Cook from Imogen's Imagination. So welcome, Sophie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. We can't wait to dive in to find out all about you.
Well, I hope I'm worth that bigging up.
Oh, I'm sure you will be. I'm sure you will. So let's start by asking who. So, who is Sophie Cook?
Sophie Cook is from Stafford originally. I'm an adopted Sheffielder and I am a milliner. So I make ladies' hats, sometimes described as a model milliner because I use traditional techniques and because I generally do one of a kind designs.
Wow. So, have you found that they've adopted you pretty much okay now? You've got the accent just right and everything.
I don't think the accent's ever going to be right, but I've spent almost half my lifetime in Sheffield now, so I think I'm quite firmly adopted.
But you're not restricted to where you'll sell in the UK. You'll go pretty much everywhere, will you? If maybe
um,
not supply everywhere, would you?
yes, because I sell my designs online, sell through my own website, and I also sell through Etsy. So I have an international market as well. Um, but I'm actually one of the only milliner that's based in Sheffield city centre. That's my little claim to fame. And there hasn't been a dedicated millinery shop in the city centre for a generation. Uh, so whilst I'm not a shop, and well, I was just wondering whether I have dreams of that. I'm not sure. Um, but just being here is a brilliant start. To bring bespoke millinery to the people of Sheffield.
Wow. And how does that go down with your customers?
Well, it's certainly been a busy year this year. After almost 2 years of no weddings and no events, um, things were a little slow, and yeah, it's been a busy year so far. I can't believe it's only May.
So with it being a very traditional practice and industry to be in, where did you get the skills? So where did all the skills and techniques come in? Where did you do that?
So I already knew how to sew. My mum and my grandma had taught me to sew when I was a sort of small girl, and I'd always had creative projects. And I started going to burlesque nights in Sheffield, and we'd get dressed up, and I started making hats for us to wear, me and my friends, to decorate our. I sort of bought pre-made shapes, decorated them to go with the outfits, and um, I was asked to stock a shop on the back of that. So it really was a hobby that turned into something else. Um, and in terms of my like formal training um, in millinery, how to make hats, I did 5 years of evening classes in Leeds. Um, so it was train journeys, 30 weeks a year for 5 years, whilst I was working full time and running the business as well.
So do you find it is a bit of a dying art? Is it difficult to actually find people that are still operating in this space?
Uh, I think in terms of getting formal training, yes, there is only one place in the UK where you can get um, official not accreditation, but an actual qualification, and that's down in London. So I was lucky to do the courses that I did when I did them. Uh, there are other milliners teaching workshops across the country, um, and there's certainly been a proliferation of online workshops over the last 2 years in reaction to people having time and space to to be able to craft and find a new hobby.
Because I guess when people say, "Oh, what's your unique selling point?" I guess it's you. The fact that you're able to actually do this, to personalize, to do something that is probably getting quite rare, and people have probably forgot what it's like to actually have that service. We're so, I suppose, used to just importing and I don't know, whatever we get, we put up with. But would you say that you are your USP?
Uh, I wouldn't, because it's not in my nature to say that about myself, but I can appreciate the sentiment behind it. um, I would say that the the biggest sort of USP of my business is the fact that it's a real working relationship between myself and the client when
Mm,
it comes to bespoke work. Um, Many of my clients, when have a loose idea of what they would like, and they've come to me because they can't find what they want on the high street, and we then work together to create the design that's in their head, and I have to tease it out little bit by
right.
bit.
So there's a
um,
skill in that to actually get.
and and because I know what my vision is, once I've got those ideas and out of the client, it's then my job is to show them what's in my head, and make sure that both visions come together, um, in perfection. um, but yes, it is um, really reliant on the creativity and an understanding of the technicalities of the techniques, the materials, and knowing what will do what. And sometimes it's an experiment, and that's quite fun.
Yes, and I suppose once you put into the mix different people's tastes and different styles, and it does take quite an eye, and probably for you to be very sensitive to what the client actually wants. I guess rather than we've all got our own preferences, but then we can't put that onto the customer. So for you to be able to detect what the client wants is clearly a skill that you've honed over years.
Yes, and also because we all know, if we're shopping for something, we know what shops will have the style of whatever it is that we might want, be it in terms of design or whatever. And so I do have my own style, which I call sort of vintage inspired with a contemporary twist. And so because clients can see the ready to wear designs in the online shop, they've got access to the galleries that I have of my previous work.
Yeah.
I think when they come to me, they can see where what they would like is sort of whether we gel together. Um, and I I always want people to be able to wear their designs again. It shouldn't be a one hat wonder. Um, you know, I, it's important to me that they get good value, and we work together to create a design that they can wear, you know, several times at least. And it might be a case of bringing that design back to me for a little bit of a tweak. But it will be a design with life, not to sit in a box, forgotten, unworn. That's very sad.
Yeah.
Um,
So what kind of fabrics do you enjoy working with?
I work a lot with cinnamon and straw and silk and felt, which are traditional materials, and I use those in using traditional techniques of wooden blocks to create the shape, using steam, pinning in place, drying. Um, I don't use a huge amount of feathers. When I do, they're quite sculptural. I'm not a frothy feather person. Um, but really, I like working with materials where I can uh, use their properties. Um, so whether that's pleating or folding. Um, so um, learnt a technique that was used in the 50s for couture hats to create ribbon shells. Um, it's very unique. It's only milliners know how to do it, and there's only a handful in the country who use it regularly in their designs. And I'm one of them.
Wow. So a lot of your creations are really, when we say bespoke, it's very bespoke, unique, because of the techniques involved, but also the styles that you're putting together for that particular client. So they're not gonna see that particular hat anywhere else. It's just going to be totally
It's
made.
their design, yeah.
Yeah.
But even the ready-to-wear designs that I have in the online shop um, are generally one of a kind.
Mm.
Um, and I use those so that clients can gain inspiration from what's possible. And that might be, they might like the colour of one hat, they might like the shape of another, they might like the decoration of something else. Pull it all together and we can make their hat using those different influences and
Yeah.
inspirations.
Of course. So I guess they, like you say, people will see you online, so they'll see what you've got available. If you do have a client that wants to, the one to one, the personal service, where do they come to see you? Where does that happen?
So I work from a studio in the city centre in Sheffield. It's called Exchange Place Studios, and they come here. There's a booking form on the website, or they can drop me an email to just scope out any ideas, ask any questions in advance. Um, so I have a lot of clients who are either mother of the bride, mother of the groom, um, engagements, which is always lovely because um, it it's it's the one time when you're really expected to have something on your head, you know, and it's always a real honour to be asked to be involved in those days because it, it is very special. Those are lifetime memories that I'm being entrusted with. Um, but also clients who are going to any formal occasion really, races, Buckingham Palace. Um, I have done a few funeral hats as well. But yeah, the palace hats are always a bit exciting because you don't know who's going to be giving out what and who they might meet.
Wow. Do you find that it can get quite competitive? That that the hat is the thing that I guess is going to be so noticeable, isn't it? It's going to stand out. People are going to talk about it. Is it a little bit competitive that they've got to have the best, a unique?
I think the most important thing is, particularly in situations like that, is that the client loves what they have because then they are going to ooze confidence. And I think in situations that you're not used to being in, default position is nervous. So if you're feeling like a million bucks, then you are just going to be living your best life and ready to take on whatever happens, and you're going to have the most amazing day. Um, so if you're worried that your hat doesn't look good for whatever reason, then that's already setting you on a slope, so a slippery one.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I know that I've got a happy client, I know they're going to have a wonderful time, and they're never going to have to worry that somebody else is wearing the same hat. That's a big tick done.
So it's all about the hat. It all starts with the hat, and then everything else sort of
Oh,
emanates.
no, no, no,
Oh,
no.
oh gosh.
Dress first.
Oh,
That is the big rule. Dress first, because I can work round a dress. I have access to lots of suppliers, lots of colour charts. Whereas if I make a hat in a specific colour, the client's then got to go and find the dress to go with it. It's far, far simpler for me to work around their colour palette once it's in place.
so how did you actually get into hats? Where did it really all start?
It was through the burlesque scene and just
Mm,
getting dressed up, because everybody did, and it was a fun thing to do. And it seems like you didn't have a complete outfit unless there was something on your head. Um,
yeah,
I've never been until this. I haven't. I was never really a big hat wearer. I had a beret, um, and I now make gazillions of berets every year. Uh, they, they are now my favourite hat for winter. um, but I always thought that wearing a hat every day was somehow a little exhibitionist. So, and that wasn't me. Now, I just think you just have to find the right hat for you, and you can wear a hat whenever you want.
yeah.
I'm far more chill.
So do you make hats for the rich and famous then? Is that, I mean, we all have these images that maybe it's the rich and famous. I mean, you mentioned Buckingham Palace. Is there any names that you can maybe drop, or is it all secret and confidential?
I haven't signed any agreements. I think I have two clients that I'm very, very proud of. Whether they would be classed as celebrities, that's maybe questionable. In 2016, I made the hat for the High Sheriff of South Yorkshire, Dr. Julie MacDonald, um, and she approached me to design the hat, which had a very specific brief. There were specific materials that had to be used, um, and she subsequently had another hat from me for another event that she was going to. This was a, a post sheriff design.
Right.
Um, and the other hat that uh, was very fortuitous. I had a short notice call from a lady saying, "I'm coming across from Manchester. I've got a meeting in Sheffield. Can I come and see you? I need a hat for 2 days' time." Okay, yes, that's no problem. So she came by after her meeting, and she told me her name, and I confess I didn't know who she was. And then I she said, "I'm going to the palace. It's an investiture." And I was like, "Wonderful, okay, no pressure then. This hat really has to work because in an hour you're getting a train back to Manchester." Um, and 2 days later, she sent me the photos, and it turned out that um, it was Dame Sarah Thornton, who was at the time the Commissioner of the Anti-Slavery um, Commission. And I was like, "Oh." And the pictures were of her getting her special Dame badge, being presented by the Queen. So my hat met the Queen.
Wow.
And
Did the
yeah,
Queen make any comments about the hat or anything?
not that I was informed. I did wish I put extra business cards in so they could be like, slipped over. But apparently that's not the done thing.
'Cause the Queen likes a hat, definitely.
And she wears some fantastic hats. Um, they're not my style, but I do appreciate the work that goes into them. They are exquisite from a technical point of view. They really are.
Oh, Lord. So I guess a lot of businesses had challenges over the last couple of years, with especially with COVID. Uh, how did that affect your business, Sophie?
Well, obviously no weddings, and not really any events during 2020. Um, I did see my orders and sales literally drop off a cliff. Um, but I was very fortunate that I had the time to really focus on the business and decide what I wanted to do moving forwards. So I spent time um, rejigging my marketing processes and updating my website and concentrating on my Christmas gift market, which was predominantly berets, um, and that saved the business.
Wow.
Um, and it saved me. um, Last year, things perked up a bit because there were limited weddings, although you know quite short notice, much smaller. Um, it meant that there was a reason for people to be buying things, um, if maybe not in the volume that I might normally be used to. Um, and I focused on um, smaller hair accessories so that people would have, you know, short. If it was a short notice wedding, they would have something.
Yeah.
So, um, and then this year, it's just gone a bit bananas. So,
Yeah. So now, so with it being so busy, what does that mean for you? Are you able to cope, or where
yeah.
do you go? Where do you go now with the extra demand you've got?
Well, um, I still am being very cautious about how many visitors I have to the studio.
Mm.
For the simple reason that uh, I I didn't get COVID during the sort of key the during the pandemic, and I would quite actively like to avoid that for as long as possible. um, I don't want to risk clients getting anything from me, and I don't want it. So I have space for 3 clients a week, um, and as long as everybody is in a different stage in their design journey over the 6 to 8 weeks that I ask for as a lead time, that's manageable. Um, and the other reason I really want to avoid getting poorly is because so much of my sales do happen online. So if I can't get to the post office and I can't get the Royal Mail to collect from me, then that has a knock-on effect. And obviously I wouldn't be able to come to the studio and work either, because we have 150 people in our building and it would be irresponsible to bring the lurgy.
Of course, no, absolutely. So, if you was to kind of, I don't know, put everything together, why do clients actually come to you, Sophie?
Uh, well, according to my reviews, I'm a lovely person.
You're allowed to say you're a lovely person.
um, I think I think it's because um, quite a lot of people don't don't have the opportunity to try hats on, especially with us losing Debenhams and John Lewis now.
Of course, yeah.
Um, and even then, if you're not the most outgoing person, the idea of standing in a department store and putting hats on and deciding whether it looks good on you is that might not be the most attractive sort of thought. It's quite exposed. You've only got your opinion to gauge it on. Whereas in my studio, we close the door, it's just us, it's a safe space, there are options. I know what I'm talking about. I will help you you know, work out what is the best option for you, as well as working out how that fits with what you want as well. Um, and so I think that level of expertise and a safe space, where you can be comfortable and, there's no, there's no judgment, and just nice and easy and relaxed. Um, and I do sometimes have bespoke clients who will, at the end of the first appointment, as we're trying to plan the design, I go, "Well, that was easy." And I'm like, "Good. It was, yeah, that's what I want."
Yes, and I think it's probably the way you make people feel that they'll remember. You know, they always say it's about how you feel about a situation, isn't it? An experience. And the way you make people feel about it will just make all the difference. Whereas you just go and buy something, like you say, off the internet or something, there's not quite the same feel to it, is there? The experience. And they're buying an experience as well, aren't they, with you?
Pretty much. And there is that time, it takes time um to actually work through the process, because I do create mock-ups and I send photos so that at every step the client is completely part of the process, and they can step in and say, "Oh no, that's not what I thought," or "Can you add something extra in?"
Yeah.
That's all there. Um, I mean, I don't have that with all my clients. Some people shop online and I put a hat in the post, and then it goes. And I never get to meet them. So um, I do like the personal relationship part of working with a client, um, as well as the ease of selling online. It's two very different environments, both of which definitely have their benefits, but also, you know, the drawbacks as well.
Yeah. So, are there any other services that you kind of offer than you've already mentioned? And how can people actually find you? So if they want to, if they're looking for you, where are they gonna see you advertise? Where are they gonna find your details? How can they get some Sophie time?
Okay. Well, if you just Google Imogen's imagination, I am right up there on page one. But my website is imogensimagination.co.uk. On there's the online shop to start with. Um, there's also contact forms and booking forms for appointments. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. I think that's all of them. Uh,
Yeah,
I
options.
and actually on YouTube, there's not a lot of me, but there are a lot of product videos, so you can actually see designs um, on my little spinny thing, so you get a 360-degree view.
Oh, excellent.
Um, but in terms of the services that I offer, I have ready-to-wear designs in the online shop. I offer a bespoke service, so that is um, a design specifically for the client from scratch that's unique to them. I can also tweak some of my ready to wear designs. So if you see something and you think, "I like that hat, but it's the wrong colour for my outfit," get in touch and I will let you know whether it can be remade in a different colour. And I also do retrimming, which is quite a handy service. If you've got a hat that you love and you want to wear, but it doesn't quite go with your outfit. Perhaps it needs a little bit of extra colour bringing in to tie it to an outfit, or needs a different decoration on it. I can do that, and I can make it so that it's all removable. and you can have that hat retrimmed again. So it's a great way to give, a loved hat a little bit of longevity.
Yeah.
Um, and if you really want to get creative, I also offer a rework service.
Okay.
So that is taking an old hat, um, and it's particularly suits larger hats with a crown and a wide brim, and then reuse all the materials to make a brand new design. So it's something that I do quite a lot for my ready to wear designs. I use a lot of reclaimed vintage hats, um, because some of the materials I can't buy anymore. They're not made. Uh, the
Gosh.
weave of the straw. They also tend to be really good quality straws, um, and for a fraction of the price. So it means that I can keep my costs to the customer down a little bit. So yeah,
That's really interesting. That's not something I'd have thought that you'd be doing. That you'd be, recycling. I mean, would you do that with the client's own hats,
can
or is
do.
it something that you'd buy? You'd buy some in, would you, or is it a combination of both?
Anything really. I can do either. I have a stash of old vintage hats waiting to be cut up and reshaped under my desk.
Wow.
Um, but if a client brings a hat to me, then I can look at it and I can say, well, because for example, to put it into context, if I was to make um, a hat using a brand new, pristine straw, what's called a capeline. If you imagine a 1970s style fluffy hat,
Okay.
if I buy that from my suppliers, that will be £80 plus postage plus VAT. But if the client has a hat that they were thinking of getting rid of because it's a bit 90s and a bit dated and old fashioned, and it was only going to go to the charity shop, it's the perfect start for a, a, a very not a very budget friendly hat, but a significantly more budget friendly hat.
Yeah.
And it's more sustainable.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so I maybe you might already be, but perhaps you could be known as obviously the recycler, couldn't you? So if you want to recycle your hats, there's recycling for most products now.
Well,
So perhaps people could send them through to you, knowing that rather than go to landfill or something like that, it's going to
it,
get to.
it's something that I've done for clients is, if they've found a hat, and this has happened, people have found a perfect colour hat in the charity shop to go with their outfit. It's just the wrong style. Um, and as long as there's no significant damage that I can't work around. So if the hat's not been stored properly, if it's got light damage, I have to work around that. But that's my job. That's you know, I can do that.
Yeah, yeah. No,
um,
that's
and
wow.
it's really nice to do something that is more sustainably led because on the whole, I have to order all my materials from overseas because they're not made here.
Right,
Um, so it's a nice way to add a little bit of balance to my footprint.
very good. Well, Sophie, thank you very much for a lovely trip through the world of hats. Really, I
Well,
suppose as a guy, maybe we take it all for granted a little bit, and that. But I can see the amount of work that goes into it, the thought that goes into it is, it just doesn't happen, does it? And it's all about making, I guess, the clients feel really nice, feeling really good about themselves. So it's a fantastic thing to do.
thank you. It's not where I thought I'd be, I didn't know where I would be, but I'm very happy where I am.
Well, maybe it was fate. Maybe, you know,
Mhm.
the two things were going to collide at some point. So that's great. Well, for obviously for all your hat requirements for any occasion, then get in touch with Sophie. Well, thanks very much for the chat today, Sophie, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
Oh, thank you.